When I first started acting, maybe 10 years ago, there really just wasn't a lot of Asian faces you saw.
Jimmy O Yang has defied stereotypes.
Therefore, you are racist, and Richard, you are ugly.
Breaking barriers in Hollywood and on the stand-up comedy circuit.
All these guys with aggressive tattoos. Yes, chef! Yes, chef! 2 minutes! 2 minutes, it's still raw! It's still raw! And they're just making scallops.
Now he's come back to his birthplace for his first ever stand-up performances in Asia.
I was like, my first show in Asia has to be in Hong Kong. And it has to be in Hong Kong, in the Coliseum.
But it's been a long road to achieve this level of success.
Yes. I know how it feels to be Chinese teenager number 2.
On this edition of The Interview, we speak with Jimmy O Yang about Hong Kong, finding his voice, and the changing attitudes towards Asians in Hollywood. Welcome. Well, Jimmy, welcome to The Interview. Seeing as we are in Hong Kong now, I want to start off with your connection to the city.
Yeah.
You grew up here until you were 13.
13, Form 1.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to ask if you had any memories from before, and how do you feel coming back now?
You know, that's an interesting question. It seems like a simple question, right? But for a long time, I feel like my brain got divided in half. Like when I was like starting to live in America, I forgot about a lot of Hong Kong memory. And then it's only when I started coming back, all the memories started coming back to me. So of course, from 0 to 13, I grew up here, basically all of my childhood, I went to Wai Yan Xiu Hok, to my Wai Yan Zhong Hok Form 1, and of course, on Chinese New Year, going to all the relatives' houses to get the red envelopes, 同埋去嗰個 Victoria 公園, Victoria Park for the 行花市係咪以前？So all those are like really core memories, and going to the peak, going to the beach and things like that. The first beach I ever went to was in Hong Kong. The first tram I ever took was in Hong Kong. So all my first was in Hong Kong. But then at the same time, all my adolescent years, was spent in America, and all my adult years. So I feel like my memories have been kind of divided in half. So it's been really nice to kind of come back here and kind of join the memories back again.
Well, do you think your impression of the city has changed from then till now at all?
Hong Kong is a mix of the new and the old. The skyline, all the brand new buildings, some of them I haven't seen before, right? Back in the day, I think when I was a child, the HSBC building was the highest one, or the China Bank building, right? The famous one. Okay. That was the highest one when I was a kid. And now there's like 10 other buildings way higher than that. So the skyline has changed, but it still mixes the modern and the old, right? You get off in Central, you have the really modern, beautiful, glass buildings, but next to it is a roast goose stand that's been there for like 100 years. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, as you said, Hong Kong is definitely a mix of the East and West, and it's also changed a lot over the years, right? But, I mean, do you feel a certain distance from who you were at the time when you were in Hong Kong, when you left till now? You mentioned how you're sort of split into half, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a very different, I think you too, anyone, right?
Yes,
From 13 to now,
right.
you have so much life experience and you're such a different person. But at the same time, whenever I do come back to Hong Kong, it does feel like home. There's something, right? I think a lot of your memories connected to your senses, like the smell and the weather and the humidity, and then when you get off the airport, you smell like the damp humidity in the air, and then you smell the sweetness from the char siu and and then the sound and everything. That brings back a lot of memory. And I think still this place feels like home, and there's a comfort to it. That's very nice.
Do you view these 5 shows as your homecoming tour?
I really do, and it's very exciting because even when I do my sets in America, Canada, around the world, I try to include some Cantonese, even whether that's teaching people Cantonese or just some of my favorite comedians, like George Lopez, a Mexican-American comedian, he would speak Spanish that I wouldn't understand, but I found it very funny, and I was learning about him and his family in a very authentic way. So I wanted to do that too, with my, Chinese, Shanghainese family, and also with my roots in Hong Kong. So I'm doing more and more of that, and now this is my first time doing shows in Asia, let alone Hong Kong.
Oh, is this your first show in Asia?
Yeah. I told my team, I was like, my first show in Asia has to be in Hong Kong.
Oh. course.
You know, so, and it has to be in Hongkong, in the Coliseum,
Okay.
you know, because that's such a classic, legendary venue. So I was really happy to be able to do this.
But what happened to hip hop, man? Is it just me?
There's 2 items on the menu and they can't handle that.
You immigrated to the US, then you later became a comedian, but you actually graduated with a degree in economics. So you weren't always into comedy. How did you pivot into this industry now?
I think, you know, you go to college, there's an expectation, you know, especially if you grow up in a Chinese family, to go to college. And there's only a few majors that's considered legitimate majors, right? Like doctor, lawyer, economics, finance, stuff like that. Well, at first I was an engineering major, but then I didn't love it, and I just tried to find something easier that will also make my dad happy. So I chose economics, you know, and I actually had an internship at the time it was Smith Barney, you know, under Morgan Stanley. My dad hooked me up with. It was like a golden ticket, man. You know, everyone wants to work for Smith Barney, Morgan Stanley, right? But I personally didn't like it. You know, I'm very happy for my friends that still work there and loves it. It just wasn't for me, because I think for me, I was always into the arts. I was always like kind of creative. You know, like when I was a kid, I would build like little forts with my chopstick wrappers, like always play with my food. I loved art classes. And when I was in high school and in college, I would always make beats, like hip hop beats. That was what got me going, like creating something. So after I graduated college, it was pretty nerve-wracking, I think, for any young people, that you have to decide what you want to do for the rest of your life. So instead of doing a real job, I guess, I just tried a bunch of different things. I didn't know I was good at comedy, or I was going to be doing comedy. I tried selling my music, selling beats. I tried boxing, I tried jujitsu, I tried selling cars, I tried DJ, I tried, you know, and then of course comedy, and it just stuck. I was pretty good on stage. I didn't have any stage fright, although my jokes weren't very good in the beginning. But it was really nice because I feel like you can really create something out of thin air without any tools. You know, it's just your brain and then a microphone. That's all you need, and an audience. Where so many other things, art, you need art supply, right? Music, you need like beat machines, you need collaborators. Acting, you need scene partners, directors, everything. Where stand-up was so freeing because it's just you and a microphone, and I just fell in love with it.
She's like, you know, your love language, like how do you convey love to your partners and loved ones? Like, for example, a love language could be words of affirmation. Like, words of affirmation? I was raised by Asian parents. I've never heard one word of affirmation in my life. Nobody ever told me, Jimmy, you're so great, you can do it.
Did you grasp it very quickly, like you were on stage and you were already making jokes?
I don't think anyone grasps stand-up very easily or quickly. It takes time. There's basketball players that may be really good right off the bat, right, or super talented. With stand-up, I think it takes years and years of practice to get your rhythm down, to find your voice. I would say I had an advantage because I never was afraid to speak in front of people. So I wasn't shy or anything. But once again, you have to learn how to write jokes, how to write in your voice, and things like that. So it does take years still.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you've said in the past how growing up you were watching people like Stephen Chow, like Zhao Xingqi, and you know, how did watching Hong Kong films and shows inform your style of comedy? Because you know, Hong Kong is known for these great comedic films.
Exactly. I think Hong Kong comedic films, as we later saw, can be just as good as anything on the global stage. Like Zhao Xingqi, like when I grew up, I watched like 逃學威龍, 國產零零七 and everything. It's some of the funniest things I watch, right? And then later on, of course, that stuff crossed over worldwide with Kung Fu Hustle, Shaolin Soccer. And I was so proud because that's my childhood idol and hero, still is. But then all my American friends are like, have you seen Kung Fu Hustle? I was like, yeah, man, that's the guy I grew up watching. Of course, he's the best. So that sense of humor, and Hong Kong just have a great sense of humor. Even if you watch TVB shows like, or even like the Chinese New Year specials like Zhang Jiwei and everyone, it's so funny, man. I think Hong Kong people have a great sense of humor. So I learned a lot from that growing up. And of course, my dad, he's a very funny, you know, charismatic Shanghainese man. So I learned from him as well. Yeah.
Well, speaking of your dad, I mean, so much of your comedy is inspired by the fact that you were an immigrant, that you have
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Chinese parents. I mean, tell me more about how you incorporate your experiences into your comedy.
I think when a lot of comedians, when they first start, you very much just do generic jokes like, I'm watching TV, I'm scrolling the internet and I found this. It's very generic, right? And I realized one thing that really helped me find my voice is start telling my own truth, right? Especially in America, not everybody grew up with immigrant parents, not everybody grew up Chinese. But me getting more and more specific about my truth and letting people into seeing a piece of my life, that's when people start relating to me. You know, that's when I was able to sell a lot more tickets, because now people are not just coming to watch me for the jokes. They come in to watch me because they feel like they know me. And I think that's what, as your comedy evolve, or as your art evolve, it gets a little more and more personal. So even if you grew up in an African American family, you might be able to relate to some of the things that I said. Just like I said, when I used to watch George Lopez talk about his Mexican American family, I don't have a Mexican auntie, but I related and I laughed and it felt like I had a Mexican friend.
Right. So it was only when you started getting more personal that you, I mean, saw the tickets being sold,
Tickets,
right?
or even, the viewership and everything. Like my first special came out, did really good, especially in America on social media, on TikTok and things like that. And then when my second special came out, titled Guess How Much, and that was the joke, talk about my mom, doing Guess How Much and things like that. That's when it got like picked up by like audiences on Xiaohongshu. In China, because they had the same, even though I grew up in America in my young adulthood and they grew up in China, it was a very similar experience. They're like, wow, this guy's mom is just like mine. And they really related, because I was just telling my truth. And that's when I think my stuff really opened up to the Asian audiences also,
Right.
in Asia.
I mean, every Asian mom, likes to show off that they spent as little money as possible.
Exactly,
right?
which is such a natural concept to us, right? But such a weird concept to, say, maybe Westerners.
Well, you gained so much success from your comedy, but early on in your career, I know you were playing smaller roles in shows. Do you feel that, being Asian in any way is some ways a curse and a blessing, in that, in the past maybe you were overlooked because you were an Asian, but now that you've gained so much success from being an Asian?
I think so. I think just like anything, it could be, a curse and a blessing, like being short, or being skinny or whatever, right? But yeah, especially in Hollywood, and in America, like being Asian is definitely still a minority. And also, when I first started acting, maybe 10 years ago, there really just wasn't a lot of Asian faces you saw. Maybe you saw one or two. So if, say, I'm a parent, or if I'm my parents, they were like, yeah, this is not even possible for you. Why would you even try this, Go into finance. I see plenty of Asians in finance. It's not until, Crazy Rich Asians that really opened a lot of doors. And Crazy Rich Asians was the first project I did where I wasn't the only Asian person on set. So that felt really freeing, which is weird to say, right? Because in Hong Kong, you watch a TV show, everyone's Asian.
Right.
So there's plenty of representation. But in America, representation, especially in Asian and all communities, all minorities and underrepresented people, is still a fight that we're still trying to push.
Right, absolutely. And speaking of that, you were in Crazy Rich Asians, but you're also known for some other roles, like you were in Silicon Valley, then you were in Love Hard. How do you bring your identity into those roles? Maybe in spaces where, you might be the only Asian face on screen.
I think staying authentic, whatever the role is, bring a piece of yourself to it. Like with Silicon Valley, I think when I auditioned for it, it was just a very small role. And then I brought a lot of myself to it. The accent, it's a lot from my Chinese family. And, the whole time I'm just like, this guy is not dumb at all. He actually knows a lot. He just chooses to not communicate with these people. And then he actually has the upper hand, right?
Listen, Jin Yang, you can't just blow the rest of our runway on a Corvette.
Who's gonna scrape the internet? Four speaker sound system. It's way loud.
In Love Heart, that role wasn't written for an Asian person. So I was very glad to be able to be considered for that, because not just only will I have a job if I take that role, right? But then my brother will also be played by an Asian actor, which is great. There was Harry Shum Jr., who was amazing. My dad will also be played. So everybody can get a job and see there's representation, because at the end of the day, that was just a rom-com. It could have been anyone, right? And I think that was something that I was very proud of.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Silicon Valley, it was interesting because the character itself, I think, became more three-dimensional, right? And you only started off, you weren't supposed to be a series regular
I
at the
don't
time.
think so. Yeah, he was just like a roommate or whatever.
Right,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
also for Love Hard,
Yeah.
I mean, not many people, see Asians as the lead actor in a rom-com, so I think that was definitely special.
Yeah. So that's kind of nice, I guess, but why not? Why not us? And I know how it feels to be number 5 on the call sheet and now number 1. So it's humbling. It's kind of nice to be able to kind of learn throughout the years, like what it means and what it takes. And, now that I'm fortunate enough to be number 1 on the call sheet, I think it's very important to, treat people with respect, treat the crew with respect, because at times, maybe when I was a background actor, or when I was, a character 2 lines, there's been times I've been treating very well, sometimes the main character ignored me fully. So I think it just makes you grateful, to be there.
Well, that's very true. Well, speaking of, I mean, in general, over the past 10 years, I would say, especially since Crazy Rich Asians, the media landscape for Asians has changed a lot, right? I think Asians have seen a lot more visibility. They've gotten a lot more roles. Do you feel like your own success is part of that wave in any way?
Maybe, but that wasn't. It's a very nice thing if people do think that, and I'm super happy to be a part of that, especially be a part of a movie like Crazy Rich Asians, But for me, it was always just improving whatever art form I was doing, right? If my joke wasn't funny today, I'm trying to be better tomorrow. If I didn't get this audition today, I try to be a better actor, right? And for me, it's always about growth. I think that's what's so exciting about being in the entertainment business for me, because I can do stand-up and do better, try to do better, do bigger shows. My specials should be funnier every time, but at the same time, I can also grow as an actor. And maybe even at some point, I can be a director or something like that. You can do a lot, and there's a lot of things you can do. And for me, it's like a personal artistic journey and pursuit. And if there's a great side effect of helping with Asian representation, especially in Hollywood, I'm all for that, and I'm happy to be a part of that.
Right. Well, I'm curious from my perspective, is there a specific moment where you felt like you made it in the industry, that you could feel like you were actually successful?
Yeah, there's a few. I think when I became a series regular on Silicon Valley, that was a huge moment. Because before that, even on the first season of Silicon Valley, I got paid the SAG minimum, which is like $900 a day. So I'd made, I don't know, like $3,000 for the whole season of the first season. I was super grateful to be there, but I was driving Uber, like literally between season 1 and 2.
Yes, I heard you use your paycheck to...
Yeah, to buy a used Prius to drive Uber. This is true. Just so I can pay rent, because you never know, especially as an actor, when your next paycheck comes from, right? So after that, I became a series regular. I was like, okay, at least now all my rent will be paid for and I'm taken care of. And from here, I can hopefully, get bigger and better roles. So that was a pretty big moment for me.
What are you looking for in your future roles?
That's a great question. I think it's project to project. I would love to work with people that I really admire and love all over the world, right? There's obviously great directors in Hollywood, but also seeing a lot of Chinese films and also seeing Paul Tae-yok last year, or a few months ago. It was so exciting, talking to Anselm and of course Jiwa and everyone. So I'm just happy to, collaborate with great people around the world. I think that's very exciting to me. And also a role that has to speak to me, and a story that I'm excited about. So whatever that is, I don't want to say, hey, I want to do action next, or I want to do romantic next, or whatever. I'm open. it's project to project. Whatever the great story is, I'll be happy to consider it.
Well, hopefully we will see you in Hong Kong. Maybe in a Hong Kong film, TV show. Well, anyway, you will be performing in Hong Kong very soon, imminently. And all your shows have sold out. You released your first one, then you added a few more.
Crazy, yeah.
And then you finally added your fifth show.
Yeah.
I mean, I've even heard some people say that tickets to your show are harder to get than Lady Gaga concert tickets or something like that. How has, seeing how strong that fan base been for you? I mean, were you surprised by it at all?
You know what? I was overwhelmed and a little surprised by it, I know I have a lot of love from Hong Kong, even whenever I post something when me speaking Cantonese, I get a lot of love. But man, this is just next level. And I'm super happy and that I get to come home to Hong Kong and still be so loved and accepted, and even walking down the street. I can barely walk down the street. I have to wear a mask and stuff, but I'm always happy to take a selfie with everyone. So it's a little new to me. This is like a little crazy, right? But at the same time, the fanfare and how fast the tickets selling out, I feel like Blackpink right now. It's crazy, right?
Are.
Yeah, wild. It's wild. And then everyone that I see, they take a selfie. The last thing they always say is like, 飛買唔到啊. I'm like, what do you want me to do? I don't have tickets in my pockets. I'm sorry. I really tried everything to like get my tickets to the fans, and I intentionally, I think, I didn't want to like set ticket prices like a mega Blackpink concert, because comedy is supposed to be for the people. And if it's up to me, I would do 50 shows, if there's availability and if my schedule allows me. So I think it's all very exciting, and it makes me just want to come back to Hong Kong more. That there's just so many people that really support me. It's very touching.
Well, humor is very much rooted in culture. Do you find that, I know you haven't performed yet, but do you think that people will react differently in the US versus Asia?
Since it's my first show in Asia and it's in Hong Kong, it's a place that I know very well, that I grew up in, but also there's a lot of new stuff and new slangs, nuances, that I'm learning about. So I'm immersing myself in that. That's why I came here so early. I've been here for like 2 weeks now. I'm gonna stay here for like a month, right? To just learn about the culture, get acquainted with Cantonese again, and what Hong Kong people are about, right? So I wanna include a lot more of that into my set, but also still bring my set here, just adding a lot of local elements.
Well, are you willing to share what potentially might be part of the show? Any local Hong Kong topics?
I don't know if I can share too much, but I'll include,
some Hong Kong slang.
Yeah, some Hong Kong slangs, maybe some Hong Kong celebrities I'll talk about, and no, I can't share too much because I'm still writing. I don't even know what I'm going to say. Yeah.
And I'm sure it'll be different than your previous shows too, right? Given the
I think
setting.
it'll be a lot of edit elements. You won't miss the the good portion of the current tour, but at the same time, I think I want to do some special for Hong Kong, maybe some added elements, like especially maybe even a little bit of added Cantonese and things like that. We'll see.
Well, I have two final questions for you. They're fun questions. I'm wondering if you would be willing to do them in Cantonese or answer them in Cantonese. My first question is, 你返到嚟香港嗰時，你第一樣想做咧係想做啲咩咧？係咪食嘢啊？
就係食嘢。
就係食嘢。
想食燒鵝奶。呢日美國揾唔到啊。係。即係燒鴨佢哋有嘅，不過燒鵝奶好正宗嗰啲咧食唔到啊。
咁聽講咧，其實你生日係6月11號啦。咁你今年會喺香港慶祝，你有冇啲 special plan？我聽講你媽咪都會喺你個 show，佢係咪香港啊而家？
係啊，我屋企有好幾人都會嚟香港大家嚟玩玩。呢個係我哋第一次從即係13歲到依家一家人喺香港第一次嘅。咁所以食飯咯。唔可以講俾你聽喺邊度食，係6月11號係咪啊？不過我哋有啲一個 family 好中意嘅地方，係我哋以前小時候都去過嘅。係啊。
Well, thank you again so much, Jimmy, for your time. I really appreciate it. We loved having you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.